Okay, we have a quorum. It's about 20 to 3 on July 19th, 2:30. Everybody's here in person except Diane has called. She's running late. And Elise is attending virtually, so we have a quorum. My remarks, I just said briefly, I have a meeting tonight, so I may have to leave early if this meeting goes too long. Disclosure of campaign contributions. I had a $35 contribution to Kelly Schultz for governor, and I think that contribution was July 15th or 16th of this year. Any other campaign contribution disclosures? Hearing none. Okay. Lisa, do we have any public comments?
I did have contact with Delegate Wilkins to confirm that she wanted to address the board today.
Okay.
I don't know if she's on. Delegate Wilkins, if you're on, if you can please identify yourself.
Is she on the list?
I wouldn't know what color and what number she's calling from.
Delegate Wilkins, can you hear us? Well, if she joins us, we'll break in and let her make her statement. Okay. No other public comments, Lisa?
None.
Is there anyone on the call that has a public comment that didn't sign up? Okay, hearing none. Okay, Margaret, your status report?
Action items, the letter to the governor, we sent copies. The spreadsheet on wait times, we sent copies. Center for Tech and Civic Life expenditures, we sent copies. Early voting center locations and rooms used, we sent copies. Position of the schools related to changing the date of the primary election, no response to date, but this is a topic for discussion when we come up with the polling place discussion. And then the other question would be if at some point, probably when the polling place discussion occurs, the board, if they wish to discuss with the General Assembly about the change of the date of the gubernatorial primary. So I would say that that's, something that you want to, if you want to discuss it, in light of the polling place information that we received late from the school system. Status report, poll book acquisition of the 2022 election is still continuing through its procurement. They are in the last best offer stage. Right now, there is a right of the losing bidder to file an objection, and right now it is scheduled to appear before the Board of Public Works on September 22nd. The election system upgrade will not occur except for the server upgrades as previously mentioned in the last meeting. The only reason that might change would be because of the National Federation of the Blind litigation, which is still in process, but the decision is 99% final. The state board advised the local boards that any facility with a drop box must have a 24/7 camera surveillance with the ability to capture data and store it, and the MOUs with the facility needs to reflect that new requirement. The state board advised Montgomery County that we have to have 13 sites with one optional early voting center, and again we are waiting for guidance from the state Attorney General's office before the state can provide us any further guidance. New forms will need to be completed to address how the new language, the new legal requirements of historically disenfranchised communities.
Margaret, can I interrupt? I'm informed that people are not hearing us that are on the meeting, and Delegate Wilkins is on also. If anybody who's been connected, we're just waiting. We've got a little technical difficulty. There's some people that we're connecting now that we had an issue with a link. So bear with us. We're connecting everybody. We're all set?
Go ahead.
All right, Delegate Wilkins, welcome. Can you hear us? Delegate?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Okay?
Welcome. Good. Glad you're with us. I know you wanted to address the board. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and greetings to the board members, greetings to President Shalik. Very much appreciate your time and your efforts. For For the record, I am Delegate Janelle Wilkins. I represent District 20, which includes the Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, and White Oak areas of Montgomery County. And I want to start by thanking the entire board for your efforts to keep us safe while maintaining access during the pandemic and the 2020 presidential election last year, with policies that were constantly changing and a health emergency that was taking place. Very grateful to your efforts to ensure a smooth election. I'm before you today because as chair of election law in the Maryland House of Delegates, I had the distinct honor of leading House Bill 745 on the House floor to increase early voting sites across the state, including 2 additional sites that will be added in Montgomery County. So I wanted to provide you, though, with some input as you consider the location of the 2 additional sites. As a member from District 20, on behalf of the entire District 20 delegation, I want to urge you to select the White Oak Recreation Center as an early voting site. The White Oak Recreation Center includes all of the criteria that is included in HB 745 for consideration. The White Oak Recreation Center, it does increase voting accessibility for historically disenfranchised communities. It has, as you know, 52% Black residents in the White Oak area, 21% Latino, 43% of residents are foreign born, and 52% of White Oak families speak a language other than English. There's also a very dense population of voters in that area, with apartment homes that are walking distance, townhomes, and it's a very dense residential area as well. There's also access to public transportation with several bus routes, including the White Oak Transit Center and the Flash Rapid Transit bus. And it also ensures equitable distribution of voting sites because the White Oak Recreation Center is situated between the Silver Spring Civic Center building and Mid-County Recreation Center, making an ideal location for East County residents. As you know, White Oak is a diverse, multicultural community that deserves direct access to an early voting site, and we urge your selection of White Oak as one of the 2 additional sites coming to Montgomery County. And you'll continue to hear from us and members of the community as you deliberate and consider locations. I very much appreciate your time and your careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Appreciate it. I know Senator Kagan is on. Senator, did you want to address the board? We can't hear you, Senator. Can you unmute?
Hi. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville and the vice chair of the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee, which oversees election law. I am grateful to all of you for all your work, and congratulations to my friend and colleague, Delegate Wilkins, for her leadership in her new role as the Election Subcommittee Chair. I just want to flag for you that at this week's meeting, the State Board of Elections is going to be again discussing new verbiage that will go on the application for mail-in ballots. The word preferred was being debated at the last meeting, and that refers to mail-in ballots versus an internet-delivered ballot. Without the word preferred, many of our voters may think that that's going to be quicker and easier, and they won't understand or won't intuitively know that they will have to click a link, download it, print on a printer, find a number 10 envelope, hand address it, pay for postage, and send that back. It is much more onerous, and what we found last time was that there was a very high incidence of provisional ballots that probably came from people who thought that downloading a ballot through internet delivery was going to be much easier. Without the word preferred, directing people towards mail-in ballots, I fear that Montgomery County's rapid increase in internet-delivered ballots will continue to skyrocket, meaning more time, more money, more staff needed, and so I am hoping that we can work together and set that up, and prevent that from happening. So I just want to encourage the county board to speak out and to contact the state board members, many of whom are new, and they are diligent and focused on all of these issues, but they may not understand the implications yet. and the enormous burden on larger jurisdictions like ours. So that's what I just wanted to pop in and say, and thank you, Chair Shalit, for the opportunity to speak. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Dave, you had a question?
I do. Thank you, Senator Kagan. Has any thought been given to saying something more than the word preferred? Because I think there's, what you just laid out is the case, and you laid it out very well. But I'm not sure if the average voter, when they see the word preferred coming from a government official, many of whom don't know who we are, whether that would be sufficient, because that might be what we prefer, it may not be what they prefer, but what you've laid out is why it should be what they prefer.
Thank you, David, for the question. They're worrying about conciseness, which I understand. Part of the problem is also where all the details would be located. So if they're in the instructions, I think most people aren't going to look at the instructions. So where it says name, they're going to understand intuitively that they fill out their name. And where it says address, they're going to put their address. So I don't think many people are going to be back and forth looking at the instructions. And so we need a shortcut to flag for them which it is, if they don't understand and are looking at two options, where we can flag for them the wiser path. I don't know whether we're going to be able to prevail upon them to do more than that. They are also having conversations about beta testing and having things explained and sort of trial run with a bunch of voters. And I'm a little worried that that may not yield what we want either.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Senator. Thank you. Is anybody else attending virtually or in person that has any comments for the board? Okay, Margaret, can I ask you to start again?
Okay.
Because a number of people didn't hear you.
Do you want to disclose public campaign contributions? Did you want to go over that again?
Okay, yeah, well, we had a disclosure of campaign contributions. I had a $35 contribution to Kelly Schulz for governor, and I think that was made either July 15th or 16th of this year. And there was no other contributions disclosed.
Okay. With regards to the action items, they were sent to the board members on July 2nd. We have no response to date from the school system about changing the date of the primary, and I would recommend that the board discuss the matter of changing the date of the gubernatorial primary election when we discuss the polling places. The scheduled date to present the poll book acquisition is September 22nd before the Board of Public Works. The question of whether the election system upgrade is final. It's 99% final, dependent upon the litigation by the National Federation of the Blind. The MOUs must include 24/7 camera surveillance. We have been advised that we need 13 sites for early voting with one optional. The state board has referred to the Attorney General's office as to what the legal requirements are for historically disenfranchised communities. There's a new election process for the members of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. Reminder that you're all required to go to the state biennial. And now I would like to have Kara Bumbray talk about FY21 and FY22. Kara?
Kara, you have to speak up.
She might be mute.
Not the final version of your FY21 budget. There will still be a number of chargebacks and invoices that were posted. Right now, you're sitting at just over 9.2 million. But as I said, this is not the final version. And I believe that either the at the August, but I believe we are foregoing an August meeting. So by the September meeting, we should have the final FY21 budget. And as a reminder, the approved DC amount was 8.2, and we are at about, as you see, 9.4 million. Any questions on FY21 budget? No? Okay.
FY22?
FY22 approved amount is 8.3, and we have really just begun FY22, and we haven't really seen any charges just yet.
Okay, I would like to point out,
Question?
I have a, do you want to address the deficit as it is identified to date?
We'll get you.
To date, we're at 9.4. And the approved amount, as I said, was 8.2. So about 1.2, we anticipate it being about 1.5 million.
That's for FY21?
For FY21, but I will have the final spreadsheet around September.
Okay, for FY22, do you want to talk about the deficit we're starting out at the beginning of July 1? Kara?
Yeah. So we anticipate that this year's State Board of Elections bill will be about $3 million, and we're only funded to $1.5 million. So we'll have a deficit there of over $1.5 million in that budget line item, and from there the costs continue. But we plan on going to request a supplemental budget request, and that's why we wanted to talk to you, to the budget subcommittee. So shown on the FY22 spreadsheet, with the budget of 8.3 million, following the enactment, as the delegate said, of House Bill 745 and Senate Bill 6.3 by the Maryland General Assembly in April of this year, and the subsequent changes to the Maryland election law effective June 1st, we're going to be required to submit a supplemental budget appropriation due to the additional charges that the additional costs that we anticipate related to the early voting centers, vote by mail, ballot drop boxes, and the newly established permanent access. Also impacts, equipment and our space costs. Increased costs related to precinct-based voting will also be added to this supplemental request. We plan on working with the Office of Management and Budget to develop a supplemental budget request that submit to the County Council for consideration. And we hope to have this all prepared and submitted in the late September to October time. So our plan is to first meet with the budget subcommittee, which is Nahid and Allen, and Alice June and the director, to discuss these items and hopefully provide a readout to the greater board in executive session.
Does anyone have any questions
Alan.
related to the FY22 budget?
Yes, I do. Kara, does this indicate that already we have gone $5,325 in operating expenses under the fiscal year 22 budget?
Yeah.
Okay, and then charges from others is 5265, but the total is still 5325. You don't add the 5265 to that?
I'm so sorry, I just can't hear you.
Charges from others is $5,265.
Yes, it should be charges from facilities.
Yes.
You're talking about FY22?
Yes,
to be facility charges, so yes, charges from others.
but you don't add that to the 5325?
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Alan, will you just, repeat that?
Yeah, you don't add the 5325 to the 5265?
The question, did you hear his question? It's the operating expenses that are coming out of line item, I don't have a line item number.
Yeah, no, line item.
In operations, the 5325, is that a deficit or is that the remaining balance?
Give me 1 second, let me pull up the spreadsheet. You're talking about an FY 22?
FY 22.
I think, Kira, I think he's referring to the total line at the top for operating expenditures, and I think you have the 5265, and then you also have the $60 in rentals and leases. And I think that's how you get to the 5325, correct?
Yes, so what's his question? He's asking,
Oh.
that's the total? Yes.
I get it now. Okay, it adds up that way, but still the department total is 5325. Okay,
Adds up.
I got it. Thank you.
I have a question. This, $1.8 million that we, $1,800,000 that we got from CARE and, the Center for Tech, are we likely to get that again?
Oh, we're not. No, we will not.
It's not likely, just because that is the only time we've ever received a grant.
But
No, I
no,
don't
it said
expect.
no, she said, right, thank you.
The
She answered my
reason,
question.
the reason the staff had to apply for that grant was there were no monies allocated for the hazard pay as well as some of the other expenditures that we had to make. So we needed to go out and find monies, and that was how we
One
covered that potential deficit.
Got it. Just, thank you.
Any other question, David?
Does the FY '22 budget include the cost of the poll books? And
No.
No.
It does not include the cost of the poll books. It does not include the cost of the 2 or 3 additional early voting centers. It does not include the cost for the drop boxes or the personnel for the drop boxes. It doesn't include the cost for the personnel to do the precinct-based voting. That is how come the staff has recommended that we meet with the budget committee, because we believe that definitely the $8.3 million budget will not cover all of the mandated costs by the General Assembly as well as the State Board.
Okay, thank you. And do we know, has there been any response or reaction or anything from the governor's office to the letter that we sent about the electronic poll books and
No.
how the costs are being allocated?
No, not at this time. We have not received a response from the State Board or the county or the governor.
Or the budget office for the governor?
No.
We just send it to them.
No, we sent it a few weeks ago.
Couple of weeks.
We have any response we would have forwarded to the board.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Kira? Thank you, Kira.
Okay, so the follow-up on that is we will be having a budget committee, subcommittee meeting once the staff is completed, and I will coordinate that with you and Alan.
Okay.
All right, and then the monthly statistics were distributed by Boris. Allison, hiring freeze, where are we at? Still in place?
The hiring freeze is still in place. We have not yet been able to get it lifted for any of the 5 permanent vacancies on our staff, but we continue to work on that and have another meeting now tentatively scheduled for Thursday about it.
Okay. The county is in the process of doing an upgrade countywide, or planning to do an upgrade to the website. And we are also in the process of doing a replacement with our computers in the entire department, which is, the timing is perfect because we are not in the middle of an election. Okay, then I think this is the end of me.
Yeah.
Kevin.
I don't have much. There's a new process to get our MOUs and contracts for early voting and election day approved through the county attorney's office. I have a meeting with, a call with the person who we need to work with to get them approved, and I'll give you an update in September. But it has something to do with, it has to be approved by the county attorney's office for it to be approved for payment for procurement. So I'll learn more tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay, so, I'm not too far behind.
New business?
Did you want to do minutes now?
Yeah, we can do minute. Huh? You wanna do
Yeah,
it?
we can do that. What do we have? We have,
June 21st.
you want to make a motion?
Yeah. I'd like to move we accept the minute of June 21st as amended by Mr. Banoff.
And you.
And Lisa and me. Thank you very much, Lisa. You do a good job.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
And I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of these minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous, Lisa.
The
Approved.
phone's
You
still
want to do
on?
these?
Yeah.
Sure. I think Margaret sent out an explanation that there needs to be an amendment to the vote by mail canvas minutes.
Oh, that's right.
There was an issue that the breakdown, rejection breakdown was not included. The state board has requested that the minutes be amended to include the breakdown, which Margaret sent you.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yes.
motion to
Yeah.
accept the amended minutes?
I move
Is
to
there a
accept
second?
amendment
I
minutes.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That's unanimous, Margaret. Approved.
Okay,
Old
so
business.
there's no other new business. I would like to proceed to the discussion of early voting.
Okay.
In the process.
Hold our remarks and questions to the end, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna do a little bit. First of all, I'd like to introduce Robin Riley, who's the Recreation Director,
Welcome, Robin.
okay? And
Welcome.
we work very much with Recreation. In fact, she earned an applause. Her staff contributed so much in 2020 to the success of our election. She basically shifted most of her staff over so that we could conduct the election.
Picked up everything so quickly and efficiently, and they were great.
Should we
So-
invite Robin up to the table? Is she
Sure.
gonna- Robin, come on up.
Anyway, so we began the discussion with regards to the needs for early voting and for the 2022 election cycle. And one of the things that came up as very, very quickly in respecting the desires of the board as well as the needs of the county is that the date of early voting as well as election day is very much in competition with one of the primary missions of Recreation, and that is a lot of the summer camps. So we had a series of discussions. We sent you in our materials in advance of the meeting what we are recommending that we utilize for particularly the primary, and we can certainly discuss expansion of sites for the general election. Because of the competing priorities and the board's request that we utilize the gym and the desire for Recreation to have summer camps, I set up another meeting between myself, Allison, Del Tibbetts, and Rich Mandolino with regards to the use of the recreation facilities in the primary. What I sent you is what we think will work successfully in the early voting for 2022. Our staff will be willing to put together, we're prepared to give you the presentation, but I did send you a summary page Thursday that tells you what we're looking at using, and I did share that with Robin. And I would thought before we get going, because we're a little bit behind schedule and I don't know what Robin's schedule is, that if you had any questions of Robin, this is the time to ask for it. And I just want to remind the board that not only are we taking over her facility for early voting, for 13 or however many sites, but we also are using them on election day. So, Robin?
No, I mean, I think you summarized it well. I mean, obviously, our mission, especially in the summer months, is our summer camp program, which in this new world, and even prior to the new world, post-COVID, we are a primary source of childcare in the summer months for families. We're finding that that's a huge gap, and we're actually starting to expand our portfolio to add extra sites. This year was challenging. Hopefully next year will not be, because we don't have school sites. So we packed everything we could into our own buildings, but we're also expanding now through into the August months, which we never did before because we're hearing so much around childcare for families that are at work. Being able to have the gym space for kids to be able to run around. Most of our groups, our camps are broken into groups of 15, and they're in classrooms and activities. We try to use outdoor space as much as possible, but the gym provides a cushion and a space for us to have kids have wellness and fitness and get some exercise, especially during the inclement weather times. So I'm happy to answer questions or concerns or thoughts.
So the gym is your priority in terms of the facility?
In every visit. It's our space where most of our kids get a chance to break it. We can make it into multiple groups. We can pull the dividers across and kids can run and play. And that's important, especially
rainy days.
on rainy days or really extreme heat days where kids have respiratory issues. We're finding a lot with asthma. And being able to have a safe haven inside is really important.
Robin, we have a board member that's on the phone. She asked if you could keep your
Voice
voice
up,
up.
yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that. I will certainly try. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Hi, Robin. This is Elise Barnes.
Hi, Elise. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. On the list of locations that Margaret provided to us, she listed Cofield and Long Branch,
Yep.
but noted that they were questionable because of a refresh that was going to be taking place. And I'm concerned because, things always tend to take longer and cost more. So I'm just wondering if we should really include sites that are questionable because changing at the last minute, of course, is confusing to voters.
Sure. At least I can try to address that. Both Long Branch and Caulfield are currently serving as homeless shelters, so we do not have access to those facilities even now, today. They will remain in place until December 31st. At that time, we're hopeful, knock on some wood, that the homeless facility that is being repurposed in Rockville will be available, and the homeless can be reproportioned back to that facility. Caulfield is a building that is on our list of facilities to do a refresh anyway. A refresh, for those of you who are new to that world, it's basically putting lipstick on the building. So it's paint, some carpentry work, new carpeting, new furniture. It generally takes about 6 to 8 months. Instead of having the building closed, doing a few little things to fix it, since it's been a homeless shelter for a while, we thought we would accelerate the refresh up so we weren't opening the building and then closing it again to the public. I'm not sure, listening to OMB last week, that they're going to find the resources for us to be able to do that. So Long Branch, as an example, if we open it, when it's returned to us January 1st, it will take our facilities team about a month and a half, is what they're telling us, to 2 months to paint, fix the things that have been damaged by the homeless shelter. They've broken out windows, our pool tables are destroyed, ping pong tables, doors are missing. So anyway, there's a lot of things that need some attention. They think that will take about 2 months. So Long Branch, I'm not as much concerned about getting back in terms of the time frame of around April or May. Caulfield, I'm just not sure at this time whether OMB will accelerate our refresh dollars up to allow us to do that refresh work. So it's kind of on the fence right now. If it doesn't get funded, we would do the same thing. We would paint, fix the things that are broken, and then it would open back to the public sometime in March or April, and then would remain open until the refresh dollars comes forward, which may be another year to 2. Did that help, Elise? That help answer the question?
It does, but again, I'm, Margaret, I'd like to know how comfortable you are with this notion of, we don't have really any control over this. So are we really comfortable with putting these 2 on our list, given?
Well, that's kind of the point of today's meeting, is for you to tell us what we need to pursue to the nth degree, and prepare for public hearing in September, as well as to put out a press release so that the public can begin the process of weighing in on the 13 or 14 locations that you, as the board members, choose to recommend to the State Board of Elections as the early voting sites for Montgomery County. So, we're completely open. The reason I brought it, and it's highlighted in yellow, is because we are concerned about its availability.
Have you thought of any potential backups in case things don't work out with the refresh?
Well, we are required by regulation to have 3 alternates on we are required by regulation to select 3 alternates for the county every election cycle. And yes, we have alternates in mind based on your decision on which 13 or 14 locations you choose, and then the staff will make the recommendations for the alternates.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely stand here.
Sorry, I just had one other question. I didn't realize I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's okay.
Okay, just looking at the list of allocations of social halls versus gyms, how was that determined? And I'm particularly concerned because it seems that all the gyms, not including the questionable sites, but that all of the gym allocations seem to be in West County.
The gym allocations right now are, Caulfield. The activity center at Ford Park is a Gaithersburg location. That's not, that's what the board asked us to go forward with in 2020. The Germantown location is the one gym that belongs to the school system that would be available, not the gym that belongs to recreation. So that is the school system gym. Lawton, the social hall, is just way too small to even expect for us to use it, but recreation realizes that and it's allowed us to use the gym. Potomac, the social hall there is definitely too small. We tried to use it the first time. It was a disaster, and so that leaves only the gym. And Wheaton, that one is the one that is up for discussion. Staff is recommending the social hall for the primary, and I have talked to Robin about using the gym in the general, but it's up to the board to tell us what you want to do. The gym, closing down the gym will be a huge hit for Wheaton.
Okay. So, again, I just want to raise this because of the perception, again, that, you know, things happen in West County that don't get to happen in East County. And, you know, I live in East County, so I hear it. And so we just want to be, I think, thoughtful about the perception that, you know, about what happens in West County versus what happens in East County in terms of comfort, accessibility, all of those things that, you know, gyms provide that would not necessarily be people would be able to do in terms of comfort and being able to spread out and not have long lines and all those things in Potomac, but not have the same accessibility in a East County location. So just something to keep in mind. Those are my questions.
At least I hear you. I would just add that East County is also the highest place of childcare needs. And without a gym, it precludes us from running a camp in those buildings. We would have to delay those camps at those sites if we did not have gym accessibility.
Sure. Well, again, I get it. I just think we need to make sure that we're aware of what could be coming down the pike in terms of, and again, this may be something that when we are having our public hearing about this, we may, you know, hear some pushback, so we should be prepared to answer that question.
First off, thank you for you and your staff for all the help in 2020. I heard over and over about it, how wonderful it was,
We'll share that with him. I will share that with him.
I really appreciate that. I grew up in East County and felt and heard many of the things that Elise is hearing and feeling now, many decades ago, and it hasn't really changed over the years. So I do think that we should be looking very carefully at those issues. I understand what you're saying about the other needs of those areas as well, and that's obviously something to think about. I'm curious as to whether there are camps that are going on in Chevy Chase and Bethesda. In other words, are we displacing camps in some places but not in others, or are we simply making a policy decision about the importance of camps across the county?
We would be if we couldn't have access to the gymnasiums, we would have to displace those camps for that, or delay that camp for the 10 days or so.
So is there a camp in Potomac?
Is there a camp at Potomac Community Center?
Yes. And is there a camp at Lawton Community Center?
Yes.
So in those cases, the decision was made that the social halls, both of which we've used before, and I totally agree. I've been one of the leaders of let's use the gyms. But I've been a leader in using the gyms everywhere. And I understand that there's countervailing needs, but basically we would be displacing camps anytime we use a gym.
Primarily, yes. Yeah, the reason...
I know you don't speak for Gaithersburg because they're not yours.
Right. But in the discussion, I mean, I've been with the county 40 years, so I'm very familiar with the election process, and I too live in the East County, in full disclosure. The social halls in those facilities are way too small for elections. We recognize and respect that. It would not impose elections in the social hall at Lawton. It's just too small. And that's why we came to the agreement that the gym would become available.
So
yes, we would just...
What square footage makes it when a social hall is too small? Or is that a recreation decision, or is that an election decision?
It's an election decision.
I mean, part of what I'm trying to understand, because I know that you all have needs and we have needs, and somehow those needs have to be reconciled. But one of the difficulties for us on the Board of Elections is even figuring out, whose decision, what is causing us to be where we are, and where Elise is talking about how we're in gyms in some places and social halls in other places. And I was actually pretty surprised by the Wheaton recommendation in particular, having gone through all that for 2020. But part of what we're trying to understand is, you know, if the board were to determine that in certain places that we consider the social hall to not be a reasonable alternative, is that still up for discussion? You know, I mean, and where Potomac and Chevy Chase are concerned, again, was that something that, you know, that our staff decided, or that you decided, or I mean, how does that work?
We work collaboratively. I mean, absolutely. We've talked multiple times and worked together, not just this election, but other elections
Sure.
over the years. And so we work collaboratively to do it.
We're okay if I mean, the board has made it very clear that the Lawton Social Hall is unacceptable.
We also made it
And-
very clear that the Wheaton Social Hall was unacceptable 2 years ago. I think it was a unanimous vote of the board.
Yes, but the difference is that we could certainly go back to the social hall at Lawton if that's the board's choice. And as for Wheaton, I did point out to Robin that the board had some pretty strong feelings about the Wheaton gym. And that is why I engaged the discussion to make sure that the county executive office was aware of the board's strong feelings with regards to the Wheaton facility. But for the primary election, when you consider 33% of those who are registered to vote are not affiliated with the political party, that we felt that
I'm sorry, what percentage?
33% are not affiliated with any political party.
In Montgomery County, I thought it was 61% Democrats and 15% Republicans, and then the remainder are unaffiliated. So that leaves about 25%.
Okay, I'm sorry, David. You're 25%. It's still a significant number of people that are not going to be showing up in the primary election. And we believe that Wheaton Social Hall would meet the needs for the primary. And I have made it clear that to Robin as well as the second floor that the board feels strongly that the gym should be utilized at Wheaton for the early voting in 2022. It's a balancing act. Okay? So the issue is recreation has these needs for a specific group of people that they serve. There's a stronger need based on what we know about the demographics that live in East County. We're trying to balance that need with the needs of the voting public.
So, is the Recreation Department concern limited to the primary? Are the gyms all available for early voting in October?
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. I think so. I mean, we'd have to do that. We'd have to go back and cancel our classes and activities. I mean, for me, our gyms provide a space for us, not only in out-of-school time, but also for seniors to be engaged in health and wellness. And health disparities have been the biggest issue around COVID. And, you know, for a couple days, does it kill us? No. But it does have a significant impact.
Oh, no, understood. I mean, everything that is done in this area is going to have an impact one way or the other. You know, we had a dozen precincts in the 2018 general election where people had to wait on average more on election day, more than 30 minutes, which is a long time, in some cases more than an hour. You know, we're doing what we can to try and keep lines under control and to make the voting experience as positive as possible and to encourage people to vote. And I understand, you know, I'm not suggesting that any of these activities are not worthwhile. I'm just trying to understand. We were given this chart. It makes reference to, you know, to certain rooms. I'm trying to understand in part, because it was just cited, that the reason why the social halls are acceptable for the primary is because of the number of independents. I'd like to know whether the recommendation, well, since you're here, I'd like to know about whether the Recreation Department facilities are available in October, or at least we would want to know that, I think, before we make our decision. And for our staff, I'd like to know whether the recommendations for the general election are included here. And is Wheaton the only facility where you're talking about the gymnasium for the general election? Because my impression of where the board was coming from was perhaps different. Yes, we feel very strongly about Wheaton. We feel very strongly everywhere. I'm pretty sure that I was the person who said that the Lawton Social Hall was too small after being the board member assigned there when we had voting there. And I think we all agreed that the Potomac Social Hall is quite small. I don't know what the measurements are for these other social halls and how they compare to the ones at Potomac and Lawton. And it would be great to get that information if we can. But I would like to know whether the general election availability is a different, is a separate question, and whether those facilities are available for the general election.
We can get that information for you.
Social Hall, Potomac is 6,840 square foot.
6,000?
840.
The gym.
That's the gym. That's the
No, that's the gym.
That's it.
The gym.
Yeah,
That's the gym. I'm talking about the social hall.
right.
If we are to make a case that we are not doing this based on the income level of the places that are being served, and if we're doing it based on what the social halls look like, then obviously it would be helpful to us to have a sense as to, the data relating to that.
All this is square footage used for the gym, or do you have it? You have the
We'll
square
have to get,
footage
we will have to get it for you.
For each of
Okay,
those. We
okay.
have it, we can get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Alan Banner, thank you for
Are you
coming.
able to take input from the public at this point, or no?
Not at this time, please.
Okay, I had some questions. So you said there'd be a delay of 10 days from camps if we use gyms for early voting? Okay. And then there are dividers in some of the gyms. Yes?
I have to think about it. Most of the gyms have some form of a divider. Some of them are not ideal. It might be a mesh net that drops down, not a full divider.
Would you know offhand if there are any of these places where there's social halls indicated? Well, you don't have this list in front of you. Maybe someone could share with her. But in some of these places where there's social halls being proposed, do you think that maybe we could use part of a gym and the other part of the gym could be used for a camp? Is that possible, you think?
It would be complicated, but we probably could figure it out.
Okay.
How loud would it be? If you're
Yeah,
using
with
part of a
kids,
gym as a
with-
gym,
with
and you
not a
have voting
summer.
going on the other side of it, I would think it'd be very loud.
Especially with just a mesh net as the barrier
And
between
the
kids
scoreboard.
playing basketball
Yeah.
and
Okay.
kicking a ball and
I
having
think of
fun.
and then the security issues that are going to come
Now
in.
for Cofield and I think it was Long Branch where you have the homeless issue. Did I understand you correctly for the financial reason to be a hiatus, waiting to get funding? You would do some things to clean it up and paint it, and then there'd be a hiatus, right? So what kind of, would those places, I'm not advocating them right now, but would those places be satisfactory for early voting after that first phase of painting and cleaning up?
Yes, we would, if we're not able to accelerate the refresh at Caulfield, we would do the painting, the minimal that we need to clean and paint and get this building back open to the public by February or March. And then we would not close again probably for another year until the funding moved forward for the refresh. So it would be available, it would be back open to the public and be safe for elections.
And the last question,
Sure.
turn this thing off here. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry. The last question is, Wheaton, the social hall is upstairs.
Correct.
There's an elevator.
Yes.
Is the elevator big enough for the big bins we have for, we have bins with ballots and other kinds of equipment?
Yes.
Can you put them on those elevators?
Yes, we just did a whole new, there had to be a whole new wooden floor installed in the social hall, and they were using pallet jacks to carry wood upstairs, so, yes.
New floor already?
Yes. Bit of a construction gafoo. But it's done, and it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful building.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions by the board, I would like Chris to do her presentation. So she could
One more
cover-
quick one.
Okay.
Ms. Riley, when are you expecting to, when are you likely to know the answer about the funding for Caulfield and for,
I will know probably
Long
by
Branch?
the end of this week.
Oh,
so by the end of this week, you would know whether availability is possible?
For the refresh at Caulfield.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, thank you.
you're welcome. And I can get you the data for the social hall square footage also, pretty quickly.
Okay.
Anything else?
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I thought
Thanks.
you're going to the space with that shirt.
Some days I feel like
With
that.
Bezos.
Jim, are you going to take questions public now about this?
I thought we were going to hold all questions
Until
till
the
the
end.
end.
Yeah,
She said, hold
At
on
the
to
end.
that.
Oh, at the end, okay.
all questions at the end.
Okay, Chris?
Good afternoon. My name's Christine Zizet, and I am the leader of the operations group. We spend a lot of our time surveying and helping you with the selection of the polling places. So today, we're here to review the sites for the 2022 early voting centers. We have 19 locations to review. 12 sites have been early voting centers in the past elections. 4 were approved as alternates for emergency sites. As of today, these sites may be available on election or for early voting. The locations are alphabetically arranged, showing the characteristics of each site. Board members have already received a summary page of which is included in the presentation. For reference purposes, the entire presentation is posted on the Board of Election website. And then also for the board, we've put out 2 binders with hard copies that you can review if you'd like, as well as in your packet, you have the statistical information that you might want to refer to as we go through the presentation. Before we get started on going through the slides, I will mention that the slides are grouped per site. So there are several slides for each site. There's a summary page of which you've already seen, the area which shows the entrance and the parking, a street map showing major arteries surrounding the location, a transit map showing the public transportation stops near the location, and then there are 2 or 3 slides that show no electioneering boundaries. The electioneering boundaries are based on a 25-foot boundary from the exterior entrance of the building. There's also a photo of the room and the square footage. The last slide is depicting a population density and racial or ethnic makeup surrounding the location within a 5-mile radius. The races covered on this map are white, black, Hispanic, Asian, and other non-Hispanic. So we'll start through the presentations. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. The first slide we have here is House Bill 745, which Delegate Wilkins mentioned earlier. It is a newly enacted legislation in the 2021 General Assembly. Different items or criteria are addressed in this bill, that such as accessibility, population served, public transportation are some of the attributes to be considered today or in the near future. Currently, I might mention that the State Board is requesting of the state's Attorney General clarification on these guidelines. So the State Attorney General is reviewing 1 through 5 to clarify for the state how we should interpret these guidelines. The next slide is the population slide that we talked about that shows the racial diversity. In this slide, a dot represents one person. And we do have over on the wall, Ms. Warner has provided us a poster. So maybe later on in the evening or afternoon, you might want to take a look at the poster that's on the wall. It's an enlargement of what we have here in the presentation. And then the next slide is our poverty map. The darkest color represents the poorest populations in the county. You'll be able to take a look at that map also is over on the wall. Now, the next slide lists the 2022 early voting site selections. As I mentioned earlier, there are 19, and the items that are bolded are the early voting centers that we used during 2022. 28. Well, some of them we used, yes, you're right. Early voting center is the Activity Center at Borough Park in Gaithersburg. The early voting center began serving the public in 2014 and has continued since then. The room designated is the gym. That is what is available to us. The next slide.
Chris, look at us when you talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next slide is the aerial showing the entrance and the parking, and you will note that the parking is, additional parking is over at the school, the high school. Okay, we'll let Mary Beth drive, and I will just look at you then. The next slide that we have up is the location map of the center, the activity center, and the surrounding the surrounding areas. The next slide is the transit slide, and you'll see that the ride-on stops out on Maryland 355, South Frederick Avenue, and the dotted line shows the pedestrian walk from 355 to the center. Here is a no electioneering zone, and then secondly, there is an electioneering zone from an aerial perspective. Next, please. And the gymnasium. We'll be using one gym. This is what has been allowed, is one gym for the early voting process. Again, this is a population map. You'll notice that the circle around the star, or the asterisk, is a 5-mile radius. So the 5-mile radius marks the population that is surrounding the activity center. And then we go on to Bauer Drive. Bauer we have used before. We used it in 2010 and 2012. We have used the social hall, and that is what is available to us today. We have 92 parking spaces, as well as the middle school next door, Wood Middle School, has parking available. Again, we have the the arteries surrounding the school, and the center is right off of Bauer Drive. And again, we have several ride-on buses that serve that area. And the dotted line represents the pedestrian walk from the stop to the main entrance. This is your no electioneering zone. And then there's an aerial presentation. We would have designated the social hall as what would be recommended or used or allowed at this time, and there's about 3,200 square feet in the social hall. That's what we used earlier when we've used Bauer. And again, now we have a population density map showing Bauer in the center of the 5-mile radius. Now we are on to Caulfield, and as we mentioned before, this availability is somewhat questionable, and Ms. Riley has done a great job about explaining our needs out there and the needs of the rec department.
Was that a church? Or was that the
No,
recreation
that's the front of the recreation
Is it?
center. Yes, it is.
Community rec
It
center.
looks like a renovated church.
And the parking spaces are listed on there, and that's the aerial perspective with the entrance. And now we have the roads surrounding the Caulfield area. And again, we have Ride-On serving Caulfield. There are no electioneering and an aerial perspective. And there we have about 6,700 square feet in the gymnasium. This, and I don't know, it probably is not visible there in that picture, but this is one of the gymnasiums that we referred to earlier about having partitions. This does not have a partition. It's just a net that rolls up into the ceiling and then drops down to divide the area into two spaces, and that mesh is basically just a fine screen, and noise would travel from one area to the next. Okay, Mary Beth, please, thank you. And then our population. DASIC Community Rec has been approved in the past as an alternate, and what is available for a polling room is the social hall. We have an aerial perspective, lots of parking, and we have the arteries again. We sit down on Trevilla Road with Ride-On being the public transit. No electioneering, and the aerial perspective. The social hall has almost 4,200 square feet. And then the radius of showing the population makeup. Damascus Community Recreation we've used since 2014, and this is designated as the social hall. We have parking and an entrance. We have the map showing the roads. It is off of 27. And then we have Ride-On stopping out at 27, and the pedestrians would walk back to the recreation center. No electioneering at Damascus, and the aerial perspective. The social hall is about 3,500 square feet. There again, we have the radius showing the population surrounding Damascus Community Rec. East County, we have used this as an alternate in the case of an emergency, and the designated room is the social hall. We have parking, as well as, it's not visible on this particular map, but there is a transit center right there at the corner. You might be able to see it. So there is lots of public transit going into this area. This is the street map.
What do you mean transit center?
The buses come in.
Bus
there.
stops.
Well, it's
a hub.
It's a hub. It's
All right.
more than just a stop.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's Wameta and Ride-On that serve East County. Are no electioneering zones and an aerial perspective. 3,700 square feet in the social hall. And again, population map within the 5-mile radius. Executive office building, we have used in the past. It was one of the original. We started using EOB in 2010. The locations that we are allowed at this present time are the auditorium and the lobby that is outside the auditorium. And here we have the parking. And I can mention that they can use the jurors lot, and there is free parking at the COB for 2 hours for any voter. And this is a street map again, and it shows where the metro is in relationship to EOB. And this also shows the relationship of the metro as well as where the bus stops are outside of EOB on Monroe Street. Our no electioneering and perspective from the air. And here we have, by using the lobby area, we've gained about 1,000 square feet. So it would be more like 3,600 square feet for the EOB. Now also we have an aerial map with the asterisk in the center of the 5-mile radius. Germantown Community Recreation we have used since the beginning, 2010, and in the past we have used the social hall, but we will be using one gym at the Germantown Recreation Center. And this is the aerial. There's parking in front of the pool, there's parking over at Kingsview Middle, there's ample parking at Germantown. And this is the street map, again, designating where Germantown is in relation to major arteries. And we have public transportation stopping outside the rec center, as well as one of the buses comes directly in on the property and makes the circle in front of the door, one of the bus routes. This is no electioneering, and again, the aerial perspective. This is a view of the room setup, and there's about 7,500 square feet available. And again, we have the circle map showing the population out at Germantown. Lawton Community Rec, we've used since 2014. It was one of the second group to come on board, and we will be allowed to use the gymnasium at Lawton, as was mentioned earlier. Our aerial perspective and the parking, I'll mention that we've contacted Village of Chevy Chase, and they will again be waiving the parking permits so that voters will be allowed to park out on the street out at Lawton. And this is our major arteries, and you'll see that the bus routes, or this area is served by Walmeta rather than Ride-On. And then this is the voter route, or the pedestrian route, from the main highway into 355 into Willow Lane and the rec center. No electioneering at Lawton, and an aerial perspective. This we will be using, as we've spoken about. We'll be using the gym at Lawton, and it's 6,700 square feet. An area of the radius, and showing the population. Now we're at Long Branch. We had conversation about that. Long Branch in the past has been approved as an alternate site, and the designated area that we would be allowed is the gym. This is an aerial perspective showing the parking in the area. And the location off of Piney Branch Road. Now we have Walmeta and Ride-On serving that area, and the bus stops are out on Piney Branch. Pedestrians would be walking into the centers. no electioneering. And we have the aerial as well. And then 7,200 square feet for a gymnasium. And then again, our population map. Longwood Community Rec, we would use would be allowed to use the social hall. And this is the aerial perspective along with the parking. And then it is right off of Georgia Avenue. The transit during peak commuter times is available. It's out on it stops on Gold Mine, and there's a walk back through the community into the recreation center. This is no electioneering, and then an aerial perspective, or a shaded area, an aerial there, showing, and then we would be using the social hall, as I said, 3,400 square feet. This is the radius, again, at Longwood, showing the population. Mid-County Community Rec, we've used since 2014, and the social hall has been designated as the polling area. Our parking, as well as the entrance. It's Lay Hill intersects with Bell Tree, and the community center is right off of Lay Hill Road. And again, we have a bus stop, a ride-on, that stops out on Lay Hill, and pedestrians walk down the hill into the recreation center. Our no electioneering, the aerial perspective, and then the social hall is about 3,700 square feet. Again, our population. Potomac Community Recreation, we've used since 2016. The gym is the designated location for polling. And this is the aerial perspective with the parking and the entrance. It sits right on Falls Road. And then we have Walmeta and Ride-On coming into the building. And we have the no electioneering of Potomac, as well as the aerial perspective. And the gymnasium is about 6,800 square feet. And then we have the circle map with the star or the asterisk that shows the population. Praisner Community Recreation, we have been using since the beginning. 2010, and it has continued to serve that area since. The social hall is the area allowed at Praisner. The entrance, and there's 151 parking spaces. They share the parking with the library over there, and the location of Praisner is right off of Old Columbia Pike. We have transit out there by Walmeta, and the people, the pedestrians, have a walk into the center. Our no electioneering. And then we have the social hall, which is about 3,200 square feet. We will be using a room across the hall, which adds another 500 square feet. There's the circle showing the population and the location of Praisner in relationship to the population. Sandy Spring Volunteer Fire Department, we have used in 2018 and 2020. The ballroom is on the second floor. There's 4,100 square feet. This is the area with the entrance and the parking. The map shows that we're right off of Brook Road, and we have talked about signage at that area. We have an official street sign that hangs over 108 now.
Yay!
The Department of Transportation came through for us.
Yay, great.
This then,
Wait till
the bus stop
6 years.
is at the intersection of 108 and Brook Road, so they would walk back. into the firehouse from the main intersection. Entrance, no electioneering, and then also the aerial perspective. This is the second floor ballroom, 4,100 square feet. And again, the population map with the location in the center. Silver Spring Civic Building, we have used since the beginning in 2010. We used the Great Hall and the atrium. Both pictures are shown on this slide. The aerial, and we will have free parking out in the parking garage 2 hours for voters. And this is,
They were charging before, right?
well, last time
Yeah.
we made arrangements,
Right.
and we will continue to make those
But the
arrangements.
handicap is not good. Okay.
It's great that you were able to get that. Thank you.
Thank you. And this shows the location off of, it's right off of Colesville, in the center of Silver Spring. And then we have bus transportation, we have the ride-on and Walmeta, as well as there's a hub, a transit hub in about a mile away. Plus, we have the Van Go system, which is a local bus free system that makes a route continually every 30 minutes throughout Silver Spring, and I think a lot of people have taken advantage of this. This is our no electioneering zones, and it's 5,000 square feet in the Great Hall, as well as the atrium. We add about another 1,800 square feet.
That's great.
And then our location in relationship to the population. Upper County, we have used it as an alternate over the years. The designated area is the social hall for voting. And we have the aerial and the entrance.
Have you ever actually used it? We've never.
We've used it as a precinct polling place in the
Right,
past,
but we've never had
we've never had to use it
That's
as an
what I thought.
alternate. And then, yes, knock loudly, please.
Waking us up?
And this is the location in regard to the arteries surrounding the center. And again, we have the ride-on out there available for public transit. No electioneering, and this shows an aerial. The social hall is about 2,500 square feet. Again, the perspective in relationship to the population. And now we're at Wheaton Community Rec. We have used Wheaton in different locations since 2014. This is the 4th site. We started out at the old recreation center, and then we were at the firehouse, then we were at St. Catherine, and now we're back to Wheaton, which has, I think, made all of us happy. It's a beautiful location.
Oh, yeah.
This is the entrance. There is underground parking in this location. We're right on the corner of Georgia and Arcola, and the bus stops right out front. We have Ride-On and Walnutta that serve that area. This is no electioneering, and a couple different perspectives. Then the social hall is 3,200 square feet. There is what is called a mingle area that is right outside the social hall. And then across the corridor from the social hall is the community lounge, which is 1,000 square feet. And we would ask that we have the availability of those areas. And then we should note also, we've already spoke to it, but social hall is on the 2nd floor of the Wheaton Community Rec. This is our perspective the relationship to our population and the location of Wheaton Community Rec. Then we go to White Oak. Now, White Oak has been approved in the past as an alternate. We've never had to use it as an alternate. We have used the social hall in the past, and that's what has been designated as being available. We have 131 parking spaces out at White Oak. And we are off of 29 in the eastern corridor of the county. And again, we have 2 bus routes serving Walmeta and Ride-On. This is no electioneering. And the room is approximately 4,800 square feet. Again, our population. And
That was Wheaton, not White Oak.
And so, do we have questions?
There was one, I think there was a member of the public that had a comment. I have no problem with that. A gentleman had jumped in and we said we'd wait, take his comment.
I guess
Is there a gentleman on the virtually attending that had the comment earlier?
There's also someone with their hand up on.
Yes, this is Jim Epstein. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make the comment when we were talking about Wheaton, that in terms of the primary, Councilmember Navarro in District 4 is term limited. So the fact that the Democratic primary will be very contested might want to enter into the consideration of whether you're using the upstairs or the downstairs, the gym or the social hall, because there might be more voting there than you would anticipate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Epstein is like Mr. Wheaton, and he's been what, operations manager at Wheaton?
At probably all of the locations
A lot of them,
that we've
yes.
been talking
Speak with
about.
authority.
He's been the center manager at Wheaton, yes.
Yeah.
And there's a, was it Kathleen Bender has a question or a comment? Kathleen?
Hi, yes, sorry. I apologize if you already answered this, but I had to jump off for a minute. But I was just wondering, in relation to the White Oak voting site, what the next steps were for selecting the site and how the public can best weigh in on this.
Well, we're going to have public comments. Margaret, you want to tell them the date and location? We're going to have a public meeting.
Well, the board will have a public meeting on September 18th. The date is, I think, settled. The time we're recommending is 10 a.m. We're going to get to that in a moment.
I assume it's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday. And the board will make that decision like really shortly. And, but we do have the council office building auditorium reserved for the public hearing. You can write to our website, elections in Maryland.
To our email, elections@montgomerycountymd.gov. We'll have further information about how to provide public comments on our website.
And of course, you can come on September 18th, and then the board will again hear the public on September 20th at the regular board meeting, and then the board will hopefully make a decision in October, unless, of course, the state board gives us a new direction with regards to that. So there is, you have easily 60 to 75 days to comment.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the information. Just one follow-up question for the September 18th public hearing. You'll post more information on that on the Montgomery County Board of Elections website. If someone can't attend that, can they also just call in comments to the public phone number, or does that not actually reach a person? Is the best way via email?
On September 18th, I don't know how we'll set that up to have the public call in, but you would be able to comment in the public meeting on September 20th. But
I just mean until then, if people have comments, can they call the MoCo Board of Elections phone number, or is there not a person at the end of it?
There's no one receiving comments for the public comments via the phone, but you can submit anything in writing to the elections mailbox that will go part of the record.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Is there anyone else attending virtually before we take comments here? Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from anybody? By the way, thank you for the presentation. It's excellent, very thorough, as always.
Also, Silver Spring, we have to think about the handicap
Handicap.
along the street and in the corner. People going
We
up.
have to do our due diligence to try to mark that corner so
Right.
people are aware that we have that ramp available to them.
Right, because it wasn't clear before. And also the step going up to the polling places, that's too close to the door for people. You know. Oh, louder. Louder?
Okay, yes, we will follow up on the ADA issues related to Silver Spring.
Right, yeah, thank you.
I had one question, which is, with regard to the executive office building, there had been an issue raised about whether only ballot marking devices would free up some space. Would the board like to send something to the state board to at least see whether that's even an option? That maybe the state board says it's not even an option for you to even consider, but at least you may get some additional information before you need to vote on it in October.
I think it's a good idea.
How many do we need?
Wait, the ballot marking versus,
Paper.
Paper.
Paper. See, there's going to be so many, because of precinct-based voting, there are going to be so many ballot styles that room, and it may not be even a possibility. The state board may say you've got to have paper ballots, then you'll at least know, staff can lay out what the room would look like if they're just paper ballots.
I think it's worth asking the question,
Yeah.
not just as it relates to that site, because at least one site on this list is actually smaller than the EOB.
I personally prefer paper. Just weighing in on that. I would hate to see that eliminated as an option.
Well, I'm not suggesting you all make a decision now, but when you have to make the decision, it'd be nice to know what level of flexibility you have.
And I think what the staff has proposed as an option, Diane, is eliminating it as an option in one location. And I don't know what I think about that yet. I kind of want to hear what people say, but I don't think I think that paper is definitely here to stay.
And I will, thank you for that. I will certainly keep an open mind, given it's a limited.
Do we know how many we need?
In terms of the equipment allocation, no, I do not, because I can't make the allocation until the board advises the staff which room you're going to utilize, and then we can do the equipment allocation. I'm also waiting on the state board to tell us what poll books we're using, with what printers, and so there's a lot of unknowns at this time. But one of the problems we had at the executive office building in the general election was the site was so small that once you put all the secure ballots in that room and the poll books with the few ballot stations,
You can't get any voters in.
there's no voters. So, I mean, I think
I get it.
we had, 6 people could get in there and vote at a time?
Oh, my Lord.
Well, that's
So-
also with social distancing that we may or may not have in 2022.
I wouldn't count on that.
Really?
Well, I mean, we don't
You're
we
sitting
don't
here
know.
with a mask on.
I am.
I know.
I am.
So
But-
social
but-
distancing is
Oh, wow.
probably going to be something that the state board is going to
Social
keep in the
Well-
picture for
2022?
planning.
Well, I think that there's, it depends a lot on whether more people get vaccinated, and it's a long time from now, but all
I
I'm
think
saying
it
is that
depends
the
on
6
the
people that
level
were
of
in EOB
infection.
before, it's not necessarily the case that would be the same limit coming up.
David, that's year from now.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's a long time.
That's what
Anything can happen.
Well-
exactly my point.
David, as a county employee, and I know that, this has been touted before, but I mean, Montgomery County has the highest vaccination rate
Right.
for a county this size across the nation.
Absolutely.
So, but, you know, we have this variant D or Delta D or whatever.
Delta variant.
And, you know, what's going to, I mean, all I can tell you is that if the you know, if it goes back up, some of the behaviors that we expected from the voting population will I haven't seen any particular sales place take away the 6-foot social distancing signage yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's quite a few. And there's quite a few who've taken away masks. And the county is no longer requiring masks of vaccinated people.
That's
But you're right. There's a lot of cause for concern. I follow the health situation very closely, as you may know, and all I'm suggesting is that I think it's a little early to to figure out what's going to be happening in June of 2022. I will say that. If our numbers get worse, we're going to have to, like we did in 2020, we're going to have to rethink everything, and we're going to have to adapt. And you guys have shown an amazing ability to do that.
and I think that's an
Yes.
important factor when we think about early voting, is that the state will be sending out sometime in February, March, April, May, a mailing to every registered voter to ask them if they want to join the permanent voting by mail list, which is going to impact the number of people who are going to participate in person in June and November, besides our traditional early voting numbers. So, and you're going to be adding at least 2 additional sites. So maybe 3, and that's going to also impact the number of people that are going to participate, and it will spread out the population in terms of voting centers.
Oh, that made me think of something. So at this point, do you think we'll be utilizing the shields and the setup regardless? Because it was a pretty slick operation. You guys did a great job. The
shields.
I don't know.
we're not that far.
No.
Okay.
Do we own them?
Different question.
Far from it.
Do we own the shield?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They're the
I guess
state.
Delta is the last one, David.
We own some shields, not very many.
Now, I have a question. This is not to advocate it, but what would the situation be if you had ballot marking devices there at the EOB, and of course need to have some scanners once you get the paper out from the BMD? What if you had paper ballots just for Rockville precincts? That would help you.
All or nothing.
Okay.
In a location, per location.
David?
If you're going to have
That's the
paper
kicker.
ballots, you have to have them. You can't, no.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You can't say just,
That'd be even-
I mean, that's kind of defeats the whole purpose of early voting.
No, you have raised some very
Yeah.
persuasive points.
A few questions. First, would it be possible for us, in addition to getting the social hall dimensions where we have gyms, to also get the gym dimensions where we have social hall?
I believe Robin has already agreed to provide us that.
Okay, so we'll get both for all. The Upper County Community Rec Center, that room is smaller than the room at the EOB and does not include the lobby that they have at the EOB. So if you're concerned about the number of ballots for EOB, don't we have even a bigger concern at the Upper County Community Center?
Well, you've never used the Upper County
Yes.
except as an alternate, and sure, it would be a legitimate concern. If you actually had to activate the Upper County, you've not ever truly explored that as an option.
Right,
You
I guess-
certainly can pursue finding out the gym size. Do they have a gym?
Yes,
Okay.
they do.
They do. Well, I'm just asking that if we are going to consider that as an option, I would think that the 2,500 square feet is roughly the same problem in both places.
You do, I mean, anyone can vote at any one of the 13 or 14 locations.
Yes,
So,
Margaret,
okay,
I've been on the
all right.
board for a long time. I'm
Well,
very familiar with
I-
that.
I just wanted to make sure everyone understood
Right,
that.
right. No, I'm well aware, as I think we all are. But it also, you know, the same thing goes for the EOB. If that comment is relevant for the Upper County, it's relevant for the EOB. People can go to other places. The difference is that the EOB is in a highly populated county seat of the county. And that's somewhat different. For the maps that were part of the presentation that showed the racial makeup within the 5-mile radius, is there data available for those of us who have trouble reading little dots to see what the 5-mile radius percentages are?
What, we would have to talk to.
David, with regards to that data will become obsolete on August 16th. So, because that data is based on the American Community Survey going from 2016 to 2019. On August 16th, we get all new census data. We just wanted to give you a sense of the demographic makeup of each of the 5-mile areas. Once we get this new data, this information about the Spanish language,
Right.
this information
Right.
about limited Asian, all of that changes August 16th.
Okay.
And so we'll have to give you new data.
Okay. Well, when you give the new data, it would be helpful. I think the visual depiction on the map is helpful for a kind of broad view, like you say. But I think it would also be helpful to get the underlying percentages in that in that 5-mile radius. The Bohr Center was listed as being one gym. I believe that in 2020 we used 1 for the primary and 2 for the general. Is that right?
Correct.
And is the use of one gym, is that they're doing or are doing, or how does that work? And is there a cost difference?
We have not seen the cost as of yet, but that is what has been offered, is one gym.
Okay.
Keep in mind, David, we had a big back and forth to get the one gym.
Oh, no, I remember.
Pre-COVID.
I
And then I think last
remember.
year for the general, they just threw up their hands and said, we're not using the building, so you do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I remember well. I was assigned there to the social hall as well. I think that if you want to add a gym at an early voting location, assign me to the social hall, and you know, and then I'll come back and argue for the gym. Okay, so that's good to know. Thank you. The presentation and the chart talks about the existence of public transit, but I think that the law talks about accessibility by public transit, which is not only about whether there is a bus route, but it's also about how frequently it comes. Because I know that there are places in Montgomery County where bus routes only come during rush hour, for example. And it would be helpful to know whether, whether there are hours limitations on any of these bus routes that we're talking about, because obviously there's a difference between the accessibility of somewhere that has a bus that comes all day and all night, and somewhere that only comes, kind of during peak hours. So that would be that would be useful to know.
Okay.
And then one last question.
Clarify on that one, Chris, I don't know if we have, or David, I don't know if you want historical information from like pre-COVID, or because I know the bus routes, they're expanding hours of service right now, and so I'm just not sure where you sort of pinpoint the valuable information on their schedules that is
Right, that's a good question, because we don't know how pre-COVID we're going to be in 2022.
Right.
Or post-COVID, as the case may be. I think it would be, I'll put it to you this way, if when we were operating as a normal Montgomery County pre-COVID, we only had buses in certain places during rush hours, I think that is an indicator of what we can expect if we are quote-unquote back to normal.
So a snapshot of what we had for, maybe in our earlier preparations for 2020 would be probably most
Yes,
relevant.
or 2018 if that's not available for 2020. But yeah, you were doing all that for 2020.
The graph here does show, that each site, based on May research, what the bus routes are, that it's weekdays, peak hours, the various locations going down this list. Is there something greater that you're after that we can provide?
I guess my question is, are we saying that all the other locations are 7 days a week, all day long?
So that's what you're asking for?
Well, I want
to
to understand, when it says peak hours, I want to understand what hours we're talking about, because peak hours for business is not necessarily peak hours for voting. Yeah, I'd like to have a better sense as to exactly what we're talking about.
We'll look at the schedules. And I will say that this column where it says bus, public transit, that is just about as current as we can get.
Okay.
We researched within the
Okay.
last week.
Okay, that's great.
And we are aware, as Allison said,
Right.
that this is post-COVID and they're not entirely back to a
Right.
regular schedule.
Right, it's just that the summary that we received before the meeting, it said public transit, yes. And this is much more detailed, and this is much more along the lines of what I was talking about. And it's great that you've done the research recently, because I know this kind of stuff changes all the time. One last question for you, Chris. You
Yes.
mentioned that the State Attorney General has been asked for an opinion about the 5 guidelines that are in the new early voting statute.
Yes.
Do you know if that request was made in writing?
The request was made by the State Board of Elections in writing.
Could we get a copy of the request, please?
I will request that of Nikki.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Chris, excellent, thank you.
Thank
Again.
Very much.
Okay, Margaret, we're,
Action item.
Yes.
polling places?
Polling places. Okay. So originally we sent you the list of the as of April 21st, of the facilities that are scheduled for construction and when the construction start date is, which is this document here. Then on Thursday, the school board, I'm sorry, not the school board, the Montgomery County school system. Robin, thank you very much. Yeah, you're free to go. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be talking.
Thank you.
All right. Notified us that these locations are now unavailable in the primary election. And that encompasses 58,000 registered voters.
The earlier list was how many?
It was not 50.
I know, it was a lot less.
I'm going to say like 10,000. But yeah, I know that number's not right, so don't hold me to it. So, there have been a lot of changes over at the Montgomery County school system in terms of staffing. So my recommendation at this time is that I will continue to reach out to the superintendent's staff to, try to get further information with regards to these specific sites that are, all of these sites are our polling places right now, correct?
With the exception of Brookhaven, but we intended to go to Brookhaven.
Well,
Right, Brookhaven was going to be the alternate for Parkland.
Right. Okay, so, but my recommendation is that you allow the staff to set up a meeting between the superintendent and the representatives, you know, it has to be just two, I guess, 2 board members to meet with the school system to see if there's any flexibility on these facilities. I am questioning how, I'm questioning whether the individual that is new to working with us understands the legal requirements that Montgomery County Schools has with regard to providing the facilities to the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And I also would like to talk to him extensively about whether or not every one of these facilities is going to start HVAC construction on or before June 17th, 18th, 19th, or whatever day. I've worked with my fair share of contractors, and I believe that there's got to be some sort of wiggle room here. Some of these places that we're going to lose, like Quince Orchard High School, is going to be a difficult situation for the board to absorb. I mean, that is a significant number of registered voters to move. And Quince Orchard Library, which is almost across the street, is not going to be able to absorb 4,000 people. There's not even that much parking. The room itself is teeny tiny. So that is my recommendation, to allow me to continue to try to reach out to Mr. Hollis, since he dropped this on us late Thursday afternoon, and that I also try to set up a meeting between the superintendent and the board members to discuss access to these facilities.
Uh-oh. That's not a good sign.
Janet?
Says you're muted.
No, that's,
Well, at least nobody else has to talk, just mute everybody else and use the.
but
No, you have to call back in.
No, it came up and said that Tom was gonna be going over the lot.
We have
You want to
to,
just unmute one of the laptops and use that? Okay.
can anyone hear me? Dolly, can you hear me?
She's not.
Okay.
okay.
Can Elise
She
hear
Oh,
you?
yeah, she's
Yeah.
She
nodding.
says yes.
Did Elise say yes?
Elise, can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
The person says yes, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So what does the board think?
Well, you should take a run first, and then,
Yeah.
Yes, you should
Okay, well, I
continue
certainly
to talk.
can't-
I mean, when you said there is a legal requirement, and this person might possibly not realize
Okay, wait, I
the
can't hear anyone.
flexibility that is going to be needed, I would say,
I think we need to
let you
speak
go
up.
for it.
David?
I think the idea of board members being part of a meeting with the superintendent is a great one. And I think that anything short of that may not show people our seriousness on this issue. And I know that this has been an issue. I know, Mr. President, you've been on this issue for quite a few years now about the moving of polling places. And Margaret, I think what you said about construction doesn't always start exactly at the moment that they say is a good idea. I personally would definitely volunteer to be part of such a meeting. I do know the superintendent of schools and would be happy to, you know, to be part of that. Have we had a chance yet? I know we just got this, to kind of vet the list and its effect on us, because I see that one of those
No.
listed is the old Tilden Middle School, which has
No,
been
we
demolished.
We have not had,
Okay.
we literally got this Thursday afternoon.
Right.
I handed it off, or Chris handed it back to me. Mary Beth was nice enough to come in on Saturday to create this list for you, so, and I didn't get it until Sunday for all sorts
Okay.
of technical reasons.
Okay.
So we can go through this list, and then get you further information
Right.
as we develop.
I think that would be helpful, and I don't think we should, also, I mean, obviously, we may want to start with the superintendent. I don't think we should eliminate the possibility of talking to school board members as well. Because all of them have a keen appreciation about elections. So I think it may very well be worthwhile to do that. I do think that we should probably also identify some of the bigger problem areas. For example, the Parkland Brookhaven issue, because I know that when I was looking at the polling place change list for today, that was very comforting to have something that was that close. They actually, their fields adjoin each other. And obviously that's, now we're kind of back to the drawing board if this is the case.
Particularly if we're going to ask the school board to scale back their start dates, they're going to want to start on certain locations right after school starts. So I
Right.
think they're going to want to say, well, which ones are you asking us specifically
Right, but
to push back on?
But on the other hand, what Margaret said about the law is not just for Montgomery County, it's a state law that says that the schools are supposed to be available, I believe. Isn't it a state law?
I don't believe it is. I think it's
Just for
actually unique to Montgomery County.
Well, maybe a state law that mentions Montgomery County, but I believe it's in the state election law. But either, if it's
Oh, it is.
specific.
That is there, but it's
Okay.
specifically a state law that specifies that Montgomery County public schools need to be available
Okay,
for use
so,
in
so,
elections.
so I think that, I'm hoping that we would never get to that point, but I think that there is a state law that says that they're supposed to make their schools available to us, and there is not a state law that says thou shalt start your construction as soon as school is out the next day. So, I think that, that's definitely worthy of mention.
But Mark, your efforts might whittle the list down, you know.
Yeah, I also would like to suggest that you remember my plea for high schools. If some of these are in clusters, that you could use a local high school, that everybody will know where that is. It's not as easy and it doesn't answer everything, but it is a possibility to cluster some together for the high school.
As long as it meets this legal requirement that the precinct is adjacent to the high school precinct.
And it does require a lot more travel for the voters.
It is a possibility, I'm saying. It's a fallback possibility. They did it once, they can do it again.
Well, they did it in a situation where the state law
David,
was.
don't argue with me, I'm just making a suggestion.
Already,
I'm
Margaret,
just-
I would
I
like
just was
to
gonna
come
make
with
a-
you too, but construction something, we know something.
Okay. Once I talk to Mr. Hollis and develop an email with him, and then I will get back to you, or Allison will get back to you to set this all up, and with all the participants, because this will be a major calendar event.
Right.
I'd like to come to that too.
Okay, so that will be Diane and David then.
I
because
said,
Naive.
I said, I will come.
I think we have to you have to figure out, and Kevin can help us, as to, if we have to have fewer than 3, then we
Yeah,
should.
let me,
Figure that,
I'll
yeah.
figure it out. I'll figure out how many can attend.
Okay.
Not real sure it's necessarily an Open Meetings Act issue either, so I've got to look at that.
Okay.
Okay.
And all I was gonna say is that the statutes that Margaret mentioned about needing to be, adjacent, et cetera, were not, in effect essentially for the 2020 election, which is what allowed the high schools to be used. So,
Okay, then the follow-up question is, does the board wish to request to begin a discussion with the General Assembly to change the date of the gubernatorial primary election? This would be a follow-up letter that you sent to members of the General Assembly in February of 2022, or February 2021, to resolve this issue. If not for this, obviously this calendar year is almost set in stone. It would be for 2026.
it does sound like there's 2 issues that we've heard about in great detail today where a change in the date would make a difference, both the summer camp issue and the construction issue. So I don't know what the chances are of getting something enacted for 2022 and how much disruption that would cause. And I don't know what the chances are of getting something enacted for 2026 this far in advance. But I do think that the issue that we identified, and I believe it was a unanimous vote of the board, I think that issue is right in front of us right now in living color.
We've heard nothing. We've heard nothing back.
Okay, let's give Margaret some time to put things together.
Yep.
Well, but she asked us a question, which is, do we want to
Do you
renew?
want to
Do we want to renew that request? And
Do you want me to go redraft the letter to the members of the delegation? Do you want the letter to be shared with the county executive? Again, the election calendar, if you were to move the election calendar, I realize that redistricting is sitting out there and they could just throw the whole house of cards and throw it up in the air and change everything around. But 2022, trying to change the calendar in 2022, we have the filing deadline set. If you were to change the date of the election, that just shifts everything on that entire calendar. Just even by one day,
Right.
changes the entire calendar. So I think 2022, that ship has sailed. I think the only thing that you can do is you can, start the process. We can provide you a copy of the letter that you sent to the General Assembly. You can share it with the county executive to see if he wants to include it as part of his recommendations for legislation to get the process going for 2026.
That's good
If
idea.
that's what the board wishes to do.
Right,
I would move that we do that.
It can't hurt.
yeah, we should.
Okay, just so I'm clear, do you all want a letter sent to the state board on these ballot marking devices?
Oh.
No.
I would say
Get some guidance
yes.
on the level of
You can't hurt.
A non-committal, we're not saying we want to do it, we just want to see what the rules are.
Considering
Yeah.
some spaces, some locations that may have space
EOB.
limitations.
Right,
Right.
I will think
Right.
a good idea if you do that.
Right. I don't know if you need a vote on the
No.
on the letter.
Do you need a vote?
And
There's
it's
two
safe
letters
to
we're
have a
talking
good
about.
faith
There's,
belief that we're just talking about maybe one location.
Well, there's probably two on that list. If you were to
There's-
actually make them an early voting site as opposed to a backup, there are probably two on that list
Right.
that would benefit from solely using ballot marking.
The Up County and the EOB.
Yeah,
all right, but
I'm fine.
you're also making an assumption that if it's 3,000 square feet, you don't need it, but if it's 2,500 square feet, you do.
Oh, I'm not making any assumptions.
It's gonna be generic.
I'm just saying,
Right.
that the board is considering
Right.
some locations that may have space limitations.
Right. I'm
One
much
option
more,
may be-
I'm much more comfortable with that because we
Generic.
don't, we
Very
don't,
generic.
we don't know how much space is,
Right.
And that's the issue.
And the board may say, we don't want just to use ballot marking
Right.
device, but at least you'll
Right.
have an idea if they respond.
Right. I think it's
at least
also
what your
something,
options are.
it's also something that we should be asking the public for their comment on as well as part of our public hearing. Because I think that, there may be people, first of all, there'll be some people who are kind of technophobes, who will be worried about the ballot marking device. And then there'll also be people who will view it as a great boon.
They were
So-
popular in 2020.
Yes,
Right.
Very popular.
they were indeed.
I have a question with opening that to the public because we're not talking about a policy issue here. We are, as our task as a board, considering the physical parameters on this ballot marking. I just think that throwing this out to the public is opening up maybe some issues. I don't know exactly what they are, but, we are tasked to talk about the physical parameters, and that's the issue that we're using for this discussion. So, the public, I think I've said enough. I recommend.
You're
we
saying it's
not
more of an
open that up.
administrative
Yes.
Right.
function.
Kevin, you just want to get the state board to give us a
Thank you.
response in writing as to
No, that makes
whether
sense.
any of these options are really on the table, right?
Right. I mean,
And
I-
if they're on the
Right.
table, then our board
Right.
has
Right.
something.
My-
to
my-
present.
well,
It might be moot,
Well, all right,
as
but
they
if it,
say.
Right.
I have no problem, obviously, if they tell us it's not possible and they say it in a way that we are convinced that they're right, then absolutely, there's no need to alarm the public about something
Right.
that we're not able to do. If they tell us that it is a possibility, and if it's something we're going to seriously consider, we don't have another board meeting, assuming we're not meeting in August. We don't have another board meeting before our public hearing. So, I think at that point, you know, the public would be interested not only in where our early voting sites are gonna be located, they're gonna be interested in, if we're talking about having an early voting site that's gonna have some voting options and not others, that would also be of interest to the public.
Well, that could also go out in the, don't we, send
Yeah,
it for
we do send out a
and that
media
could be
release.
talked,
Right.
That's all I'm asking for.
mentioned in the voter guide.
Voter guide.
Kevin, I'd be in
Yeah.
favor of the letter zeroing in on the EOB. Very popular place, centrally located, the physical demands of that one location. I mean, I think there's such favor of the EOB going forward that I like to see the letters focusing on the EOB for my money.
Mr. Banov and I will have a conversation.
Okay. Yes.
You all chat and let me know what you want.
Okay.
Right. Let's do
All right, so we're gonna get those two letters.
Right,
Good.
right.
Okay.
Thank
Calendar
you.
being what it is, the fact that we have a public hearing scheduled would be part of our reason to ask the state board to
Give us
give
a,
us some information.
Is this an appropriate time for a question about the public hearing?
Yes, this would be the perfect time.
Okay. I believe you said that you were tentatively thinking about the council building as the location?
Council office building, auditorium, it's on the main level with parking garage.
Yeah, it's like third floor, I guess, roughly, not the
No,
one.
it's on the
Yes.
main.
Oh, the auditorium on the bottom level?
Yes. Right.
Okay, because I heard that the council hearing room was under construction, and I didn't know.
Well, that may be, but
Right.
the auditorium
The auditorium is what,
reserved.
the auditorium is what we're talking about.
Right.
We
Okay.
have the
Yes.
auditorium reserved.
We have it penciled in.
Okay.
And we have an invitation to go out.
And we, staff would like to recommend 10 a.m.
I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying?
Is that okay?
Get my school because you know.
Fine for me.
Mad.
Is that okay, 10 a.m.?
Yes.
September 18th.
18th, a Saturday.
yes,
Yes.
good
We
time.
gotta do it, we gotta do it.
And that's going to be at the EOB, you say?
No,
No.
county.
It's at the council office building, the council.
Council office.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's what you
Uh, so we're going, action items, Margaret?
Yes.
Any action item?
Now, does the board wish for us to continue the Teams aspect of your board meetings?
Oh, I like
Yes.
the option.
I
I would
dislike
say
it,
for,
but
I would say for the near future, you know.
Yeah,
We
with
just-
Delta flying
yeah.
around, who knows?
I mean, we don't have to make that for forever, but
Is it a hardship to do it?
yes.
It's,
Lisa's not.
well, you
Question.
know what? It's going to get better.
Right.
Okay. Well, I appreciate
It's like holding
the-
two meetings, so it's
Oh.
this and
With all this COVID news and
thank you.
everything.
We will continue to do the Teams meeting.
Yeah, actually, it's in everybody's interest.
We
to
all
keep that
here
option
except
open.
one.
You know, a lot of
Yes.
people are,
I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah, we're just going to have to learn
just for
the technical piece of it a little better. Okay,
is there any action items?
Any other
all right,
item?
action items.
Before we do that, you distributed to us some proposed,
Louder, James.
you distributed to us some proposed specific polling place changes. Was that just for our information at this
That was
point?
just for your
And so
David.
we don't need, we don't need to take action for some time on those.
No.
And I know that at least one of them, you gotta find out whether Brookhaven is still available, et cetera.
Yeah, Alan asked for that information, and so I was following up on
Okay,
that.
okay, great, thank you.
No, you don't have to make a decision on that till January.
Oh, okay, excellent, thank you.
Might as well not anyway, since you're districting.
Well, no, I know, there's a lot of reason to wait.
Isa is there now.
Okay. Action items.
It's 6:30,
Chris,
right?
I'm sorry, Lisa.
6:30?
You okay? You over there.
Okay, so action items, I have first that Robin Riley is gonna pull some data on square footage on social halls.
Jim.
That was Jim's?
Both.
I thought it was.
It's both.
Okay.
It's both.
Gyms and social halls.
Okay. I have that Kevin, Mr. Karpinski is going to prepare a letter regarding the ballot marking devices.
To the state board.
I have that David has requested the percentage under the 5-mile radius for the population maps. He's also asked for the bus routes, hour limitations at all the centers, so like a peak and detail. I also have a request, a copy of the letter, I believe it's from the attorney regarding the House Bill 745 requirements.
It's a letter to the state attorney general from,
To the attorney
from the
SBE.
state board.
Regarding House Bill 745 requirements. I also have Mr. Neiman requesting, volunteering, as well as Nahid and Diane, to speak or attend communication with the superintendent once Margaret has prepared all the documentation he needs to do.
And if there's a limit, Nahid's spoken first.
And then David, I'm sorry, Mr. Karpinski is also going to find out about the Open Meetings Act and if there's any issues, if all three can be a part of that meeting. Public hearing at 10 a.m. on September 18th, right now tentatively at the COB. And we'll continue Teams meetings.
I think Kevin had one more letter.
Right,
There's
there
two
Oh, I'm
letters.
sorry, yes. The letter to the county executive regarding the 2026 elections.
Is it just the county executive? I thought it was the
General
legislature.
Assembly.
No, it's just a general assembly and to the county.
Might as well send it to all because it affects everybody.
Yeah, that ship is gone, Margaret, I think.
2026.
2020.
The
This
scope
year,
of the
they're not
letter
gonna
is
change.
about 2026?
Yeah, we just.
Yeah,
We're following up on an earlier letter.
right.
Encouraging them to take action.
But for 2026.
Anything else?
Okay, so, following our tradition, unless there's a majority of outrage, we're gonna, our next meeting will be September 20th of 2021. That's not a Jewish holiday, is it?
No.
No.
And,
Which
so we were not gonna meet in August. Everybody have a wonderful summer?
But you will be at the biennial, except you.
Yes,
You have a waiver.
yes.
Everybody, you're gonna go to the
You will
conference?
be at the biennial
I've talked to you.
by
I don't know if
virtual.
I'm gonna go down or not.
I think I'm.
You can attend by Zoom, I think.
Yeah, we can do it by Zoom, and
Okay, by
I
Zoom.
told Margaret
I think you can.
that I haven't, if I go down, I'm gonna spend the night at my daughter's.
When do people have to tell Lisa?
About
Whether they're
Last
going
week.
a week ago.
Yeah.
a week
The
ago?
Friday I was.
So you're all
So
late.
you are,
You're
you signed
registered
up
as virtual.
virtual. And you
I'm-
are
we're-
in person, virtual. Waiver,
Good. Yes.
waiver. No, you're
Virtual.
Do we have to tell you which
And then,
sessions are going?
Oh, yeah. 'cause
I'm
you have to-
waffling too.
make sure you talk to Elise. I don't know what the plan is.
Elise,
to make it in person.
what did we hear from Elise?
She said virtual.
Okay, yeah, I remember now.
All right, everybody, so, have a wonderful, safe, happy summer, and we'll